Welcome. My name is Steve Seitz, and you are here with the new show I'm launching called Book Talk with Stephen Seitz. For those who don't know me, I am a freelance writer. I'm an author, journalist, film critic. I'll also detail your car if you've got 25 bucks, you pretty much name it. But the focus of this show is to discuss books, reading, and writing. Most people don't really have a proper relationship with their books, I feel. They don't understand that it's not just words on a page. There are people behind those words, and they have things to say. And so what I'd like to do is to just bring the world of books a little bit closer to the viewing audience, and with any luck, get you to crack open a book now and then. This is my first time out, so please bear with me. But I do have a veteran here, Amy Howlett, Vermont Department of Libraries.
A veteran.
Well, you've been on TV more than I have. But anyway, Amy's here to talk a little bit about the department and what it does, and of course to share some of the books that she's brought with us. So Amy, if you would.
Okay, so Amy Howlett, Vermont Department of Libraries. I actually have an office in Bellows Falls, and my territory, which is the way we set it up in the state agency, is Windham County, Bennington County, and Windsor County. And I work closely with 50 libraries, the public libraries of Windham, Windsor, and Bennington. And then as projects come along, right now we're doing a big broadband project that involves wiring libraries across the state. Whatever comes along, I'm up for that too. So you said books and the people behind them. For me, it's really, I think the thing that got me into this line of work was the books. I am that kid who was always happiest with her nose in a book.
So was I.
Yeah, right. And we remember those great experiences, and we really want to make sure that the generations that follow us don't lose them. So I would add to your list of things the publicizing of the word that public libraries are a great way to get into books. And so cheap, they're free, you've already paid for them, your
Yes.
tax dollars at work. So I'm especially pleased to know that SAPA TV is making this program available in an area that has such great libraries. I use the Springfield Town Library, the Whiting Library in Chester, and the Rockingham Library all the time. In fact, some of my books today are from those libraries. And I also use other libraries because when you're going through a town, you can count on a clean bathroom and a warm welcome and Wi-Fi and internet, and those things are fabulous. But I guess what I'm here to talk about more specifically is books that I think people will really enjoy. And you and I agreed that we might start with a little bit of a conversation about self-publishing, since that's such a big term. And you, I understand, are a self-published author. Yes, actually that's what this is, this book. Title is called Secrets Can't Be Kept Forever, and what I did in that was, there aren't any, let me put it this way, there aren't too many books set in Vermont, especially there almost no Vermont detectives. Archer Mayer has the field to himself, and geez, I thought he was getting lonely in there, so I thought I'd come up with my own detective. In which case, he's a reporter like myself, and he starts to follow a routine case. It gets deeper and deeper and deeper and more tragic, of course, building to what I like to think is a powerful climax. We will find out. But yes, I decided to take this on my own for several reasons. One, a lot of people, big names, are doing it. David Mamet is self-publishing. He's the famous playwright and director, of course. From Vermont? Yes. Yep. And so several others. So I figure my thought was, well, it can only be, if it fails, at least I'll know who to blame. And if it succeeds, I can gloat. But we'll just see how it goes. Yeah. So, Steve, I'd add to that a couple of books that I think our audience has already heard about, and one, of course, is the wonderful and charming The Tale of Peter Rabbit. So, Beatrix Potter was not welcome in book publishing. She approached a publisher with her charming little tale, The Sketches of Peter Rabbit and His Sisters, Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail. And the story of how they how Peter sneaks into Mr. McGregor's garden to grab the vegetables. A real classic in children's literature, a classic that endures today. She was turned down, and so she became one of the big first names in self-publishing. The other book, which I don't have with me because it is still far too popular to bring, is of course 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
So E.L. James wrote that as fan fiction in honor of Twilight, and she had such success with it that a regular publisher picked it up, and the rest is history, as they say. Talk shows and TV shows, and I think every library in Vermont at this point owns at least the first, and more probably all three of them, because it's been on the bestseller list for more than a year.
Yeah.
So the other book I brought is one called Sea Letters, and I just discovered this. In fact, it is a present for my father for Christmas. But this is the letters and journals of Captain Andrew Pinkham's family. And does it look self-published to you?
Not in the least.
No, it looks fabulous. So I found out about this at a librarians conference where the topic was self-publishing and how many authors are doing it. So it's incredibly hard to break into print. Very few people do it through a standard publisher. And it requires learning quite a bit, finding an agent, finding a publisher, and working with them at some length. So there are other alternatives now, and books like Sea Letters are being published because of that. I also think about those really rare topics. So for example, there's a woman in Barrie who's very interested in publishing Vermont history, Patricia Belding. And her books, I think the first one she did find a publisher for it. And after that, she understood what the process took, and she was very willing to take on her own marketing and publicizing, the way you do with your books. And so from that point on, she sort of has her own press. And the books like this one look very professional, but Pat is writing about Barrie history. And this means that she can get it into print with a modicum of expense and then see to the advertising and delivery on her own. And of course, technology has really helped with that too.
Yes, that's true.
So how did you get yours printed?
Well, for this one, I should mention that I do have a regular publisher for my other stuff. I write about Sherlock Holmes, and I have a publisher based in London for the Sherlock Holmes material. We can talk about that later.
Based in London?
Yes.
That's great.
But most writers, you have to understand that the 50 Shades of Grey lightning, the Harry Potter lightning, doesn't strike very often. Those are the exceptions which inspire all of us. But let's face it, you got to do the work yourself.
Yeah.
You have to arrange the signings. You have to approach the bookstores. You have to arrange the advertising, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where we all got our own different methods.
Yep.
I commissioned a couple of trailers for 2 of these books, for instance, and we'll just see how well they do.
Great.
But you just do what you can.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate in that I used to be a TV ad man, so I can have a few resources I can draw upon.
Yeah. So I'm aware of 2 independent publishers. I'm sure there are lots and lots more, but there's Independent Publishers of New England, IPNE. And they have a staff of people, they have a staff of local independent presses. And just paging through their catalog, I saw small presses, in fact, 2 small presses in Pomfret, which isn't that big. And 2 small presses in Pomfret. I don't know whether it's a family or what.
Pomfret's the size of this table.
Well, it's a little bigger than that.
Yeah, okay, 2 tables.
So they're all over the place. And then the publisher that I know who's behind Sea Letters and many others is Maine Authors Publishing. And again, they're sort of a school for new authors. So they'll teach you what it takes to market your own books. And they'll provide a catalog and a means for distribution and a way to routinely reach out to the independent booksellers, which I'm thinking must be the core of the selling points. Or is it Amazon? Which is it?
Well, you want to be in bookstores.
Yep.
Bookstores, people say Amazon is killing the bookstore. That isn't true.
Well, I know Amazon's the biggest thing there is.
Yeah, but they don't have everything. And the local bookstores are willing to work with you. They're willing to offer deals, try to negotiate with Amazon.
Good point.
And of course, the local bookstores cater to their clientele. It's it's a flip side. Local bookstores are specialty houses. Amazon is the great wide sea. You cast your net, you don't know what you're going to get necessarily.
Yep. And maybe we should give a pitch here. I think we have wonderful independent bookstores in this area. I love Bill and Lynn Reed at Misty Valley Books. That's the town I live in, so that's the first one that comes to mind. And then Pat and Alan Fowler at Village Square Booksellers in Bellows Falls. They are great places. And just as you can go in at any point in a library to talk books, I find booksellers great places to tell you what the hot new trend is,
Oh, yeah.
what you should get for your nephew who really loves cars, you know, that close, intimate knowledge with what's coming out. That's definitely a...
Oh, Advanced Word. I love Advanced Word.
Advanced Word?
Yeah,
What's
if-
Advanced Word?
You know, if somebody's getting a book early,
Yep.
and you happen to know they're getting the book early, you can get your order in first.
Aha, yeah. I was in Village Booksellers the other day, and the new Allegiant came in, the third book in the Convergent, Divergent series, and people were there, really happy to see it.
Yeah.
So maybe we should talk about the about Harry Potter.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up because we were on the topic of getting books early. You know, the Harry Potter books for this part of North America used to be printed in Brattleboro. Before,
No kidding.
Oh yeah,
Huh.
yeah. Before the book press went under for reasons that'll take too long to discuss. But yeah, I went in there and I covered the whole thing, and they just gave me they just gave me the first three books in the series because they were seconds. You know, they couldn't. They had minor flaws, so they couldn't put them in covers. Another reason, incidentally, to be a reporter. The graft. No, I'm only kidding. But yeah, that was my introduction to Harry Potter. The printer's remainder pile.
Yeah. So just in case there are kids out there, and I'm also aware that we're heading into the gift buying season. So this is always a good time to talk about books so that you're ready
Yeah.
on Christmas morning or Kwanzaa morning or Hanukkah night, excuse me. So this is the first one, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And I find that the first few are the ones I still go back to. And I gave in. I have always had the policy of we were not going to buy this book in our family. We were just going to get it at the library. But I gave up by the time the second Harry Potter came out, because I realized that my family was going to be reading and rereading and rereading these books over and over again. So this is the first one where the whole story is set up, where you find out that Harry Potter is motherless, fatherless, and left with the despicable Dursleys, who raise him until he is 11 and finally old enough to get that letter which introduces him to the wonderful school, Hogwarts. And I find myself going back, particularly when I'm stressed out, and rereading those first few chapters. Each book starts back at the Dursleys as Harry prepares for another year at school. And there's something very pleasant and nostalgic about rereading them. It's not the excitement of knowing how it's going to come out.
Exactly.
I've been through them before. But that world is now familiar to us and so dear. So I in fact carry Harry Potter in the back of my car in case I break down somewhere in a snowstorm and have nothing to read. Harry Potter is there for me.
I've got Sherlock Holmes.
Do you? There we go. I like Sherlock Holmes too. So if you're debating what to get for a 9-year-old, an 11-year-old, you might think, you just ask around, do they have the Harry Potter books? And give them one and see what comes back.
Yeah.
I'm also happy to say that I know plenty of kids who became readers because of Harry Potter. And the language is not that easy, but the thrill of that story and the excitement of knowing that there was another one coming out with the same characters really made a difference.
Yeah, well, we were talking about Conan Doyle. He's the one who came up with that in the first place.
Oh, the suspense?
Serial characters and separate stories. At the time in the 1890s, they laughed at him. Nobody's going to do that. They won't want their long, complicated serial novel.
Yep.
But Conan Doyle talked the Strand magazine into publishing separate short stories, and we all know what happened from there.
Yep.
Yeah, basically, Conan Doyle invented TV series.
Yep.
Everything you watch on TV goes something.
So was it a
format.
complete story, or did it only take you part way through, and then you had to buy the next paper to finish the story?
It just did. It wasn't a serial. It wasn't a soap opera. The whole story was in the magazine.
Okay.
So if you missed one, you didn't miss it.
Gotcha. But you wanted to get the next one to find out the next case.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Wonderful. Well, look how durable those characters have been. I mean, they've been recycled into movies and other books and your series.
Oh, yeah.
Lots and lots of spin-offs for Sherlock Holmes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And now we've pretty much established that Sherlock and Company are in the public domain, so the estate can't get nasty. They try, but they really can't. So if you wanted to try your hand at it, you can. But if you're going to do it, just take my word for it. Try to get it right. You can't just toss it off the top of your head. Too many people do that.
Huh, okay. Watch how you become a Baker Street irregular.
Yeah.
So I thought I would also mention, since we're talking about self-publishing, a trend that I'm aware of, partly because of what public libraries are doing, and partly because I'm interested in trends, especially for the population we call boomers. And that's the growth of the memoir. Mm-hmm. So people who look back over their lives and decide that in order to save a fascinating life, they're going to write a book for posterity. Mm-hmm. And now we're not really talking about publishing something. You're not talking about even 100 copies, but it's pretty easy to take your book to Kinko's or Staples or someplace like that and get it bound and create an amazing family memoir. Mm-hmm. And I think those are fabulous to read, and I'm so glad that this is something that people are doing. And maybe some people are doing it as oral histories, but I love the written word. That's the one that I'm pretty sure will last.
Well, yeah. It's a lot of people. That's been going on for hundreds of years by now. I mean, one of the reasons we know as much as we do about the Titanic disaster, for instance, is that a couple of survivors did write down family histories after they stopped shivering. Yeah. And those surfaced years later. Yep. And you never know what's going to turn up in that attic. That's one of the reasons to go up there. Yeah,
terrific idea. So we agreed that we would talk about some of the hot books right now. Mm-hmm. And do you have a favorite that you were going to speak about?
Right now, I'd talk a little bit about Stephen King's 11/22/63, which is his time travel story about a man who goes back to see whether or not he should stop the Kennedy assassination.
Oh, wow.
And I'd have to say I'll always go with Stephen King, because even at his worst, he's hard to put down.
So what about the new one? Have you gotten a crack at it?
Oh, the Kennedy book? Oh,
the new King. Is it called Dr. Sleep?
No, I haven't. Christmas is coming.
Okay. Shout out there. Here's what we'd like.
This is the time of year where I have to suspend buying everything I would ordinarily buy for myself and please.
I know a family that has the tradition. They're all adults now. So they buy all the new books, and the deal is you're supposed to read your book that you're giving someone yourself first before you pass it on. And then for the next 6 weeks, everybody's just passing the bestsellers back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we don't do that. We hoard them.
Okay. All right.
If my wife has her pile, I have my pile. Mm-hmm. Occasionally we'll steal from one another.
Great. Well, I thought I might talk about Craig Johnson's book, A Serpent's Tooth. His character, Walt Longmire, I guess is getting some fame thanks to television and Netflix. Yes. Do I have that right?
That is correct. Yeah. A little while ago, I was signing some books over in New Hampshire, and my wife went off to talk to people because that's what she does. She's a teacher. And one of the people she talked to kept praising Longmire to the Skies, this TV show on Netflix, so we started watching it, and it's very, very good.
So I am not a watcher of Longmire. I'm afraid I'm much too busy watching Scandal. There's only so much time in the days that you're not working. But I love these books. I think the first one I read was Junkyard Dogs, which is set in Montana, like the rest of the series, but had such a Vermont flavor. So it starts with a guy up on the roof trying to clear the snow, and he's tied himself around the chimney and also to the bumper of a car so that if he slips, he'll stay on the roof. And somebody gets in the car and drives off. And you can imagine all the things that happen. So that's Junkyard Dogs. But I loved A Serpent's Tooth also. This one features both Longmire, the sheriff, and his best friend, Henry Standing Bear. And the issue in this one is a young boy who it turns out has come from the Church of Latter-day Saints. He's been kicked out of the community, and he is trying to find someone in the area that he belongs to. So because the Church of Latter-day Saints is so cut off from the outside world, when someone shows him the movie, My Friend Flicka, he is immediately transfixed. And when he finds out later in the story that there is a book My Friend Flicka. It's an even more intense experience. So think about Craig Johnson. This one is from the Springfield Library. I'm just about to return it, so it will be back there. But I think it's worth knowing that there are plenty of earlier books in the series. So the new one is always hot. You know, people who already know Longmire want to come in and grab the new one, but there are usually 3 or 4 sitting on the shelf. No reason you shouldn't go back and grab them. Yeah, and I do love the regional mystery authors. So you mentioned Archer Mayer.
Oh yeah.
And I also brought one with me. So this is St. Albans Fire, a Joe Gunther mystery. I lived in St. Albans for a couple of years, and I love that sense of reading a book that takes you back to a place that you're familiar with.
Yeah.
And the other thing I adore about this story is that it has a character with the name Lil Farber, who is a New Fame character.
No kidding.
So Archer Mayer is guilty of that. People with real names turn up in his books. Joe Gunther is a Brattleboro cop, somebody who works very hard to solve local mysteries. You often visit the municipal center. You see local things, you know, the homeless people under the bridge, or the way Vermont forensics works. So it's fiction, no question about it. Joe Gunther is completely made up. But because it's populated with areas that we know, and because it rings true, I think the writing is really great.
Yeah. Well, I'm from Brattleboro, so I can attest.
Yeah, it's real, isn't it? Yeah. This particular one starts with a horrendous fire in a hay barn in St. Albans. And the family is devastated. When Gunther goes in to investigate, he's a little surprised to find that although it looks like arson, this is a close-knit community, a family that's really well liked, so he knows it's going to take some time to tease out the pattern of events that led to the barn burning down. So St. Albans Fire, excellent one. And as with Junkyard Dogs, it's older. It's going to be on the shelf. You don't have to worry that it's the hot new one that everybody's going to want to get for Christmas.
Yeah, well, if you haven't read it, the books are just come out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We love that stuff. So I thought I might also talk about a kid's bestseller, and this one is so hot that I literally was not able to get my hands on it. I looked in 4 libraries, and it's out in all of them. So it's Wonder by R.J. Palacio, and I use the New York Times for my my ruler, my yardstick on whether things are a bestseller. It has been on the top of the kids' bestseller list for months. And it's also on a local Vermont list. I don't know if our viewers are aware of the Dorothy Canfield Fisher list, or the Red Clover list, or the Green Mountain Book Award list. All of these are lists that are used by public libraries and by schools to encourage kids to read great books. So each list has a variety of titles. Every list comes out new in the year. And in the spring, there is voting to decide, for kids, which the best of the books is. So as long as you read the minimum number of books on the Dorothy Canfield Fisher list, it's 5. As long as you've read 5 books, you can weigh in on what you think the best title is. And typically with that award, they try and get the author to come and speak in Vermont in the spring. And that's a phenomenal experience, being in a huge gym with all these Vermont kids who are so excited to meet a real celebrity, an author. So I should just say a couple words about Wonder, this book by R.J. Palacio. Has kind of a plain blue title with just a schematic face, a kid's face. And it's fiction again. It's the story of a kid who was born with congenital facial deformities. And they are challenging enough that between the surgery and the difficulty of the attention when he appears in public, he has never been to public school. So this is the story of the year. He starts at a public school and learns initially how mean kids can be, and also how kind they can be. And it's just walking through a year in this child's life. I'm very excited to announce that it's also the Vermont Reads title this year. So you know the Vermont Humanities Council always announces a book and encourages the whole state to read the same book so we can all talk about it. And this year it's a kid's book. It's Wonder, this very popular book that we'll all be reading.
About what
and
age group would you
discussing.
say Wonder is aimed at?
I would say 4th grade and right up. I never have trouble reading children's books. I think, first of all, when you write with such a spare format, you know, they're not that big, you have to write beautifully. And typically that means that the prose